I have
No, Scott, you have to shut up because I'm clicking on the Google Live button. And we're live.
I never do.
It is
I host, Scott.
Monday, September 20th, 2021, 5:01 p.m. Scott has a new game that he likes to play when I'm trying to start the show. As I'm getting ready to click on the blue Go Live button, he starts talking, which puts me in this impossible position where I can't click the blue Go Live button to start the show because then it would start in the middle of a Scott Shapiro sentence, but I can't, so eventually I have to say, Scott, shut up, so I can click the Google Live button. That is the action that took place just before the show started.
It's almost like Ben, that's almost like a Sophie's Choice. I'm so sorry.
It's terrible. I mean, like, what the position
I'm
that I'm
sorry
in.
to put you in that horrible position.
And it was like before, if you weren't tenured, it would be easy. But, or if it were at a lesser school, or if you weren't, if you weren't a philosopher. But all those things together, are you going to interrupt a philosopher at the Yale Law School with tenure to start the show?
Can't be done. It's like Stalin. We just have to keep clapping till our hands are stumped. Right. Going live.
Okay. Oh I just want to say, I don't make the rules.
We are on Facebook now, Scott. Sorry.
We are not allowed to have fun anymore. But in lieu of fun, we are going to do something today that I have been waiting to do since we started the Where's the Lie segment. When we first started this, there were a few people who I wanted to play Where's the Lie with. One of them is Barack Obama, because I think like getting a story about the presidency and you have to figure out whether it's true or false would be like super fun. And I think he would totally deadpan it. And it would be really fun to try to figure out if it was true. The other was Virginia Heffernan, because Virginia is, as I have said on the show many times before, one of the great talkers in talking. I don't know what the noun form of that is. Yeah. And
in rhetoric and oration.
Rhetoric and oration. Thank you. And there's always a thread of a story when she gives one of these monologues of hers. And so I thought we would bring the story out and assess its truth. Okay, here is a reminder of the rules. The poll is already up. 70% of you, without Virginia having begun her story, think she's lying. You can vote anytime. You can change your vote anytime. You can note your belief or disbelief and discuss it in the chat. There's one thing you cannot do. You cannot Google any publicly available facts to assess, because that is cheating. Will we know if you're cheating? No. We'll never know. You'll get away with it, but you will suck if you cheat. You'll just suck, and you'll know you suck. At the end of the story, we will each ask 3 questions. We will bring in 2 members of the audience to ask 3 questions. If you would like to be said member of the audience, flag that in the Ask a Question box. If you ask another question, I will ignore you. And then we will do the big reveal and see whether we can spot the lie in Virginia Heffernan's story, if there is one. So, Virginia, welcome back to In Lieu of Fun. No pressure or anything, but I've been looking forward to this for weeks and weeks and weeks. So,
well, I have 2, because I've now made a study of this game, and I've decided to have all of it exist in the questions except a very short story. Do you know what I mean? So, like, some of them go on and on, but this is just. It's a high concept, it's like one log line.
So in other words, But the thing that we're assessing whether it's true is the short story at the beginning.
Yes.
I
Is this?
I
Is
just
this
love I love this high concept, low concept thing. That's
Yeah.
a great.
This is
That's
like
a
classic
great-
Virginia, to be
I,
fair.
I really thought about it because I had a really long one with these detours, but then I still wondered if the detours were false. Anyway, so now it's just simple. Just fact check this,
Okay.
or tell me you think I'm lying or not. At 28, I went to interview Václav Havel in his castle in Prague with George Stephanopoulos.
Wait, that can't be all. That was a sentence. Like you said, it was a short story, but you didn't say it was like a fortune cookie.
Well, that's where the questions. That's where it's going to come out in the questions.
All right. We're going to play with this. We've only got 54 minutes left in the show. I mean, we can.
But that's why I think.
Did you break Scott, or is he frozen?
I think Scott's frozen.
Oh, okay. It's just he looks frozen on my screen, and I'm just like, I was like, was that such a short story that like Scott is just completely?
Yeah, Scott's broken from it.
Yeah.
All right, people are already asking questions.
All right, so
No.
let's do it.
If I went with George, and I did go with George.
Yeah, so we're going to have a slightly different format. We're going to have to adjust. The format is going to be, Kate, you ask whatever questions you want to ask, and then I will, and then we'll just start, and Scott will, if Scott continues to exist, and then we will bring people in to ask questions. So you get us started, KK.
Okay. Tell me the details. I would like, what was your flight itinerary? And where did you leave from? Where did you have, and what was your flight? Like what airline?
It's a great question. So it was 1998, and I can't remember the airline, but I flew New York. We flew direct New York, Prague, and I'll just give you another detail. He sat in first class, and I sat in coach because we were traveling together, but I was in the support clerical role. And George Stephanopoulos was famous, as we all know. And so first class for him. And we were working for a magazine called Talk, edited by one Tina Brown. So she paid lavishly for him and not for me. Direct flight, I don't know which airport in New York. Pretty sure
Direct
it wasn't
flight.
Newark.
How long? Wait, this is going to be a second question. Have to watch myself. I would be
So
terrible if there was like a genie.
I don't need to Google this to tell people that Talk magazine, edited by Tina Brown, really did exist. It was her post New Yorker. It flamed out fairly quickly. I want to say it had a relationship.
Maybe
with
because
Harvey
it put George
Weinstein,
Stephanopoulos
right?
in first class. All the way to
Wasn't there like a Miramax Harvey Weinstein part of Talk magazine?
I could do a whole other story on how I worked for Harvey Weinstein. Yes, at Talk, and to my shame, was part of that open secret. I mean, I really did. I mean, I wasn't anywhere in his sights, but I really did know and walk around most days knowing, like, don't get near him. He's like hurt other people.
Were you an employee of Talk magazine, or were you how did you come to be support staff for George? I was going to say George Papadopoulos, but that's because looking at your face when we have George and a Greek multisyllabic last name, it's in our conversations it's going to be Papadopoulos.
It's always the coffee boy. It's always the coffee boy. I had been a fact checker at the New Yorker, and then disappeared for a little while into academia because for the money, as Scott knows well. I needed to get rich quick scheme, and some people heard multi-level marketing, and I decided to try to do a dissertation. So
that's not true.
No, that's true. Oh, you're right. No lies. I didn't do it for the money, but I did go back, and then when I came back to journalism, I approached Tina, and she let me come there as a fact checker, as something like employee number 6. We did a year-long preparation for the launch. I was a fact checker, and they were doing a lot of, this is sort of these days of synergy where the idea was like kind of studio system for like Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, the writers, and then just milk them for stories that they could then turn into movies and be sure the writer gets as paid as little as possible.
Right.
And good strategy. And so one of the things was to get the staff writers, like Fleet Street style, the staff writers or the staff, to do as much of the heavy lifting as possible so that we didn't have to pay top dollar for writers. So one of the things they had the super junior people like me do was read over like found documents, like this guy that had kept a diary of working with Mike Nichols on Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. So that huge diary, just all these pages came over my desk, and I was charged with going through it and trying to make an oral history out of it. So I was doing kind of stuff like that. And then that led to handling talent, because there's nothing I am better at than dancing attendance on a male ego. It's just like, that is my jam. Just like saying things like, that is incredibly interesting. How did you know that? Wow, you must have done a lot of reading on that subject.
Stop giving away all my secrets, Virginia.
So I was put with the likes of Newt Gingrich and George Plimpton, and I just was splained and filled with splanations from men. And one of the people who I was chosen to splain, because I was so good at taking splanations, was one George Stephanopoulos. And that meant preparing him for this interview by getting like decent English translations of some of Václav Havel's writings in Hungarian. Ha! Check. Tried to like, make it look like I was lying. And anyway, in Czech, so I got translations from the Czech to English, and I studied. I prepped him like people did for like Charlie Rose in the day or whatever. And then he needed someone to carry his pen and fact check and be sure he was on top of everything. And so I did some of the wrangling stuff when we got on the ground in Prague. And I have so much gossip about him. I don't know if that's allowed.
Wait, about who? About Václav Havel or George Stephanopoulos?
Both, actually. Both.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Actually,
like every time you say that name, I keep thinking that you like sneezed or something. Like,
Stephanopoulos or Havel?
No.
Václav.
Wait, I don't. Yeah.
He says
Václav.
Václav. Another thing I learned is he says Václav.
Wait. So this is my question. Can I? Did you finish your question, Ben?
No, go ahead. We can take turns.
Okay, I just didn't want to step on your turn. So,
No.
Okay. So I have so many people have said to me about Václav Havel that you think he's short, but he's over 6 foot tall. How much taller? I'm like, is he like 6'1", or is he more like 6'4"? Like, what's the?
Oh my God, that is such a good question. I feel like I'm in Serial, the podcast where no one could remember what happened to Adnan Syed. I'm just like, is it possible that I just don't remember? He was sitting most of the time because he was old, and he was with his second wife. His first wife was a good communist. I know I'm dodging the shortness question, but his second wife, who was very present, was an actor. So he was a little bit like the kind of Jerry Rubin. He was a little bit like those boomers or the people that were lefties. And then they, people like a family values person, like David Brooks, who then married like a sexy assistant. So, but for the left. So he was like a good communist, good stodgy, you know what I mean? Like a good stodgy person, supportive.
The Woody Allen, that's the famous line from Woody Allen's Annie Hall, where he says, I'm a bigot, but for the left.
Yes, it's like that. He's like he's like midlife crisis. Like, I want a more sexy life, except for the left. So so his second wife was an actor who probably didn't know from communism and was definitely not a velvet revolutionary. And she was very pretty, and she kept telling him to smile. So part of why I'm thinking is that he was sitting in those rooms with all the light, with like a green, not a green room, but a sun porch.
Sunroom?
With windows. like a beautiful sun porch that was probably called like, in Czech, it was probably called like the Bloom Room or something, like, because it was in a castle. And she was like outside sitting having tea, but periodically she would come in to tell him to smile. Right? Socialism with a human face, man. She was trying to like doll him
wrong
up.
Czech leader.
Oh,
that would be Dubček.
That was Dubček who said that.
Yeah.
Socialism with a human face.
Václav Havel wasn't really into socialism at all.
So anyways, he was married to her. I'm trying to think if they stood up.
This is really avoiding the question of how tall he was.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall it.
What about George Stephanopoulos? How tall was he?
He's short, as people say, but he's like beautiful. He's fine. He's fine featured, and he has like a nice stature to him. I do have some gossip.
Yeah, so let's.
What was that rambling? In no point in that rambling, incoherent response.
Was there an answer? Scott's question.
It's really good that he, you're saying most people come away and say that he was 6'4", because I do feel like that might have been a little leading. Like, you really have a lot of friends who've been surprised by the height of Václav Havel when they met him in person? Maybe. But I think that was a leading question, because I don't remember anything outstanding about his height. I remember him being physically impressive, and I remember him mostly sitting down. But I know you guys sort of got Tom Nichols when he was talking about where he was oriented toward Bob Dole when he allegedly high-fived.
He basically like buffooned us all.
He wiped the floor with us.
All right.
Buffalo.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is like a point of order.
Yeah.
But is the contestant, in this case the guest, are they allowed to attack the questioners?
They're not allowed to violate HIPAA.
Okay,
but I think short of a HIPAA violation, she's not allowed to scream out your blood type and.
Okay, because I didn't know. That was interesting that you went after me for raising this height issue.
Well, I just was into there was a little bit of when did you stop killing your wife thing of like, you've got to tell me that he surprised you with how tall he is. So then I might struggle to surprise you with how tall he is, but maybe he's short.
I'm a lawyer. I'm an officer of the court. I wouldn't do that.
All right. I like it.
Okay.
But how tall was he?
George was short. I don't remember anything except a kind of heavy, big, like Gary Cohn head that's like, made of stone, that it was very, very impressive and tends to make me think a person is tall. But I didn't clock being
he had like a granite-like features.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm talking, like a freaking founding father. Like a Mount Rushmore factor.
I want to go back to Talk Magazine. How long did you work there?
Oh, okay. So 2 years, and they were rollicking. And if I was going to tell another story, it would be about the boat I took to Liberty Island. Just a couple people. Though really hard to remember. Oh yes, Henry Kissinger was one, and the other one was Kate Moss. Not kidding. 3 of us on a boat and talked. And like,
speaking of HIPAA violations, her BMI is way too low.
Her BMI and also.
But he makes up for it.
And also the big granite head and the Cape Moss. I was just in heaven. I mean, who doesn't want to be on Liberty Island riding on a boat with like those were
Henry
things that
Kissinger.
I was like, if I'd had a cell phone, it would have been like, Mom, guess.
Did you work with Tom Watson at
I
Talk
did work
Magazine?
with Tom Watson.
That's your third question.
All right.
I worked at Talk Magazine. It crashed. Tina used to say it crashed because of 9/11 or something, or the internet, but there's just so much overspending there. And it was actually a Disney Harvey Weinstein, Tina Brown joint. So what could go wrong? But so much did. The stories are, because we were celebrity besotted. But what was also nice for all of us who worked there, including Tom Watson, who's a very straight arrow, is that we got to pretend that we were above all the celebrities while also being really so freaking excited and blown away when like Paul Newman came to the office, but we were like, no, we need to be covering really important news stories. Like what's going on in the Persian Gulf now? Like, we've lost sight of the Persian Gulf. I do not care that Padma Lakshmi, who Tina literally introduced as the great beauty of the Orient to us. Just saying.
No, wow. Oh my God.
He was dating Fatwa Saddam. I mean, what's that guy's name?
Oh my God. Did you call
Salman
her?
Rushdie?
Did you call it fatwa?
I called it a fatwa.
You called him fatwa.
No, I would. Okay, I don't even.
There was
Hey.
a fatwa against him.
Live
but-
TV,
I
we
was
don't.
calling
Author of Midnight
Fatwa.
Children?
We don't.
What?
We
Midnight
don't.
Children.
We don't attack our guests over
Oh.
their Freudian slips.
Yeah,
No,
but-
I was
wait a second.
calling him
This
like
is what
the
hap-
way you would call like Champagne Scott Shapiro. Like his nickname is. You know what I mean? Like what you know him for. You know?
No.
Not
No.
Salman Rushdie. And
I get it. I get it.
beautiful,
But Virginia, what
mysterious
goes around
concept.
comes around. You attack the guest, you attack the questioner. The questioner's going to go after you. Just saying. I'm just saying.
Scott, by the way, mixing it up on Twitter with you is a lot of fun.
Oh,
all right.
Likewise.
Any other
KK?
questions? Keep them coming.
Yeah, I want that. I'm gonna burn a whole question. I still have one more. I'm gonna burn a whole question. What's the George Stephanopoulos gossip like? Come on.
Oh yeah. Okay. So anyone who knows like his marriage history or dating history could probably fact check this in their brains. But he was at the time single, and he was for a while. He was like a bachelor, and his father is a Greek Orthodox priest who runs an important church. I don't know if he's still alive, but so there was some idea that he might have to marry a Greek Orthodox woman, and he told this to me as his like dutiful assistant, carrying like I think literally a briefcase of his, wearing a suit, late 90s suit. I was,
In Prague,
but he was trying to get married, and he wanted to get married in Prague. So he had done pre-Tinder, pre-Bumble. He had done a kind of dating service that was like for high-end something executives, and it was for.
Uh-oh.
Should we just make up the rest of that story?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a dramatic thing.
I know. I think that George just came and bumped off Virginia
Yeah,
before he told
just,
the rest of that story from 1998. That actually didn't seem it was going to be too salacious, but who knows?
We were maybe just getting to the salacious part.
Yes.
I always wonder.
Can someone tell me while she's gone who this person is that she's meeting?
Václav Havel?
Yeah, I recognize the name. I think it's in a Billy Joel song or something.
Famous Czech dissident becomes the president of Czechoslovakia after after communism fell.
Yes. Okay.
Very celebrated. He's a Nobel Prize Peace Prize.
I know like that about him, but like not like what he did to get the Nobel Prize. If that makes sense. Probably not.
He was,
anyway,
I think he was fighting
against playwright, prisoner of conscience.
Yeah. I was confused.
And he wrote the New Yorker's obituary of Frank Zappa.
Oh.
Wow.
That's kind of cool.
When Zappa died, I'm trying to get Virginia back on the screen. When Zappa died, Václav Havel, who was then the sitting president of Czechoslovakia, wrote an obituary that said that when he was in internal exile, which was basically house arrest in for years, he used to play Frank Zappa records to remind himself that there were places in the world where you could say anything.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
Freaking amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Let me while I will see if I can dig it up.
Ben, you're being paged by John Hawkinson. You have to give Paula permission to Google Frank Zappa because she doesn't know who Frank Zappa is.
Paula,
this is your
okay. Virginia, you vanished in the middle of just as George Stephanopoulos was signing up for a dating service for elite men.
All right.
You disappeared, and we thought George had his ABC hackers hack in lieu of fun to stop you from.
So just to be kind to him, he flew someone over. and she was Eastern European, as maybe some people that you fly over places to meet you are, or maybe not. I'm not saying anything about the Ukraine girls really knock you out. So anyway, he flew over this woman, and she, to his great disappointment, had acne. And so there was a lot of the time spent before we went to it. Kate, you just gave like a sad look, like,
I
acne.
mean,
You're trying to find like a hot escort, and she has acne.
I mean, a little bit, but that was also simultaneous to me opening the link to Václav Havel and looking at him for like the first time.
That happened. Is that Googling? That could be Googling.
No, it's a C-SPAN thing. I didn't look at anything else. I'm saving it for later. Sorry.
I will say, I think that he was doing like the best one can, single and dating, and I don't mean to hold this against him. And then he came back and met his now wife, and has seemed very happy with her ever since. So this is not to disparage him. We all do, we're all freaks when we're single, right?
Yeah, sure.
So what's your Václav Havel gossip?
Oh, all right. So mostly that his wife was forever coming in to be like in check, like, Václav, smile. Like, it was just like early capitalism. I mean, it hadn't been that long, and all of a sudden everything had to be like in color. There was nothing brutalist left, and it was just super cool. She even put like bronzer and and
not everything had to be black and white.
It was right, exactly. It was not everything had to be black and white or like stodgy, and they didn't have to be like egalitarian. She could be just like beautiful, and he could be
two times the cabbage.
Sorry, 2 times the cabbage. Exactly. But they were like, as you guys probably remember, Prague like skipped some steps, and Prague got its. I don't think they really took the bit. Do you? Feels like they just didn't really go down the Iron Curtain. Like they just kind of, their Iron Curtain was a little more. It had already a little more. I don't know.
A little more see-through.
More offense. More offense.
Yes, exactly. More like a. I don't know what it was, but in any case,
more of a border wall.
Yes, like they came back to life really quickly.
Yeah.
They didn't. They were just like waiting. So that's what he seemed. And it seemed that she really liked that he was hero in the West, because for maybe some of our younger brothers and sisters who don't remember that he was like a Velvet Underground person, which, he loved the Velvet Underground. And so George and he talked about Lou Reed, and that made his new wife feel like he was kind of like a pop star instead of, this kind of random head of state in a small European, recently communist country. Because remember that about Havel? Like he was different from your Lech Walesas and stuff. He had some razzle dazzle in the U.S.
I did not know about the razzle dazzle. Definitely Lech Walesa, I don't think had razzle dazzle in the West.
You got to remember the Lou Reed stuff with Havel. No. Oh, well, that's the Velvet Revolution. Yeah, all right. Someone in the comments knows that, and don't leave me hanging.
Is there any relief? This is not one of my questions. I'm pointing it towards my co-host. Is there like Velvet Underground, like a pun on the Velvet Revolution? Nothing. No, it is? Oh, okay.
I think there is some either urban myth or some accident or some possibility that one thing inspired the other. Says Lisa, agrees. Yes, Virginia, someone says Lou Reed. I know they have something to do with each other, and I'm not sure what it is. Because one thing I did was not Google anything before I'm answering questions. So
you're allowed to Google before the show.
But I
Virginia.
didn't want to because I thought that it would be more authentic because I couldn't remember things, right?
Okay, so
I wasn't coached.
It's time to take audience questions.
Smile.
Dr. Doom, the floor is yours. You get 3 questions.
Oh, I really only needed one.
All right, you can take one.
Thank you. Virginia, you mentioned that Mr. Stephanopoulos dated. Can you recall any of his girlfriends and American girlfriends, and where they went to school.
Where they went to school?
This seems like it's teeing up a better story than mine. And not like, I remember him talking about what he needed in a girlfriend. I don't remember him, nor do I remember reading in the Observer or whatever about his girlfriends and where they went to college. The only girlfriend I can think of is that woman that he met that I described so persuasively. And the, what's it called? And the woman that he married, who I think is named Alexandria and is also an actress.
Okay, well then I'm done with my questions because that was a dry hole. So.
All right.
No, who was it though? Who was it?
This is a woman who also dated one of the founders of eBay, and broke off with him. And Stephanopoulos was one of the people that she dated. Anyway, so
All right.
I'm glad
that's it.
I'm glad it ended there because up until that last piece of information, the relevance was really tenuous.
Daniel, in his native habitat, you have 3 questions.
Was the
Daniel's a
show
ruthless questioner. Sorry, Daniel.
was the show you were working for syndicated at the time?
I wasn't working for a show. For some reason, he was brought in as a print journalist, and I don't remember what his deal with ABC was at the time, but he was just supposed to do a whole interview, and then I was supposed to transcribe it. Clerical, secretarial. I was not really there as a journalist. I was supposed to transcribe the whole hours and hours of interview through a translator, and then cut it into what I thought was good for the magazine. So anyway, none of it was on TV is the answer to that. There were no cameras around except for like some stills.
What language did you transcribe the interview into?
English, but there was an interpreter on the spot. So, and he spoke a little English if I remember, but I just transcribed we recorded it, right? So then there was like check. So then that on the thing was indecipherable or whatever. Just like they deleted words nobody understands. And then it was what the interpreter said. And then it was what George Stephanopoulos said, if I remember right. And then I transcribed it from the tapes. So I don't want to pretend I speak Czech.
And where was the interview printed?
Talk magazine, which is unfindable online right now.
I will verify again also that
Talk
it really
magazine
did
was
it.
real,
Yeah.
and it really did. I did not know that Virginia worked for Talk magazine at any point, but her account of things connected with it has the ring of truth to me. Well, do you guys have additional questions for Virginia on this subject before we go to the big reveal?
I only got to ask one question.
Then you
Yeah,
better
everyone
ask.
left too.
Then you guys better ask more. I'm all tapped out.
I've been listening carefully to this whole call, or whatever you guys call it, a show, right, show. And I can't recall you ever saying what the conversation was about involving Václav Havel.
Right. So it was a long conversation, and it was about a new book he had, a new book that was just out at the time, and that George had to like get a hasty translation of and read. But George was really interested in religion. So he asked a lot of questions about communist atheism, and also I think at the time he was still like quite interested in Eastern Orthodox religions. And so it was really heady, and he was really prepared to talk about.
What was the book about?
Yeah.
What was Havel's book about?
That is a very good question. I have a signed copy around here somewhere, and it's in Czech, and I cannot remember. I mean, it was nonfiction, and it's a Czech book, but I don't remember.
So we have,
honestly, I don't remember.
Petra, we have an actual Czech person here who I think should, Petra, you should come on and
take Dr. Doom's extra 2 questions.
Yeah, we're going to bring on Petra to ask you some, to interrogate the Václav Havel plausibility here.
I'm, by the way, if this is not for, go ahead.
She has rejected the...
she doesn't usually come on screen.
We're trying again.
No, I think she doesn't want to come on screen.
It doesn't work for me tonight. Okay.
But
Kate?
Okay. What did you do when you weren't working while you were in Czechoslovakia?
Okay, so part of the reason I so much remember that he was dating is that I spent almost no time with him. And there was a restaurant called, another great thing about Prague at that moment, for anyone who went there, I had been there closer to the demise of the Iron Curtain. And one of the great things about Prague was that they quickly embraced Soviet kitsch the way New York did. So like every other restaurant was called like KGB or whatever. And this one, the one that I went to was called Pravda. And I just loved it. And it was like black and white and chic and 90s. And I just like sat there and was amazed that I was there, and then did a little touristing down like these little stony ways. But of course we were only there I don't remember the hotel at all. We were only there for like 2 nights. It was as cheap as Tina could get it. So I didn't get to do, and mostly we were just like prepping for the interview, going to the interview. I remember overhearing people saying in English, like I can still have this guy's accent in my head, walking along like the embankment of the river there, whose name I'm also forgetting. And the guy was saying, the young are very much mouthing the platitudes of capitalism. I just remember hearing him say that. And I was like, mouthing the platitudes, right? and I was like, I can mouth them.
Here, I'm going to mouth a platitude.
Yeah, exactly. I'll mouth a platitude. Exactly. So I like
the invisible hand.
Yes, exactly. Capital gains, no. Yes, libertarian, Ayn Rand. So that's what I remember doing, was like kind of strolling around, and I remember just like these little pathways, and then being at this restaurant called Pravda.
Paula, you get a question. You have a question about Virginia's clothes.
You want me to ask my first question?
I want you to ask whatever question you want.
Okay. What were you wearing at the time?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked me. Okay. Do you remember there's this brand called
Don't say do you remember.
Okay.
5 years ago.
There was a brand called there was a brand called Teen Flow, which was not for teens. I don't really understand it. I want to look it up after, but I can picture the logo. And it wasn't
like how Forever 21 is for 13-year-olds.
It was right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's it. Right. But it was like workwear, and it was a dark green suit. It was from Tango in Brooklyn Heights, if anyone lives there. And it was, I'm so glad you asked this, but so of course. And I went into the, of course, that's all I cared about. I went into the like boutique place and was like, I'm interviewing Václav Havel with George Stephanopoulos, and I need an outfit. And I made them like just cover me with whatever. But of course, like, what did they care? Like, it wasn't the Tonys. Like, who cares what I was wearing? But anyway, it was green, and I might even.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
We've lost Virginia again.
Is that a sign or?
I think, George Stephanopoulos,
And it was all one. It was a full
Oh, wait,
suit
you got to
and then,
start
like,
again.
high heels.
You froze
You were
again.
saying green.
Oh.
You froze at green.
Yeah, green.
Oh, okay. Frozen green. Sorry. It was like possibly double-breasted, tight jacket, and then slightly flared pants and high heels, and a very, very little remembered idea of the 90s that really was a 90s thing. Dark green. Someone asked. It was like somewhere between like a dark green and like army green actually. Yeah, it was really tight. It was really, and it was really high heels, and there was a lot of walking around to get through the gap.
So, Paula, you also had a question about, whether Virginia had a moment where she was like, yeah. So I think.
When did you have your oh shit moment? Because I feel like whenever someone has an oh shit moment, they kind of remember the scene around them.
You mean like, I can't believe this is happening?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're like in the presidential palace.
In the presidential palace.
Meeting with the president, with George Stephanopoulos. And was there like a moment where you're like, have an out-of-body experience watching yourself, watching yourself sitting there with the president of Czechoslovakia, famed dissident, and George Stephanopoulos in your green double-breasted suit.
I was exactly, Kate, totally remember uniform outfits. I was totally just floating during it. But sometime in the 90s, someone taught me this French word. Do you ever use this word? Habitué, like someone who's just very, very comfortable and habituated to places. So I decided, it's like how some people decide they're going to have repose, like that phrase from Fitzgerald. Well, anyway, so I was going to have repose, yes, but I also wanted to be an habitué everywhere I went. So I thought, I'm sitting here and there is no way I'm going to give away that I'm like from Hanover, New Hampshire, 03755, a tiny town, and that, I was scared to go to college in Philadelphia because it seemed too giant and overwhelming. And I'm like looking at George Stephanopoulos and history in the form of, there is a part of me that's just like, this was incredible because, the wall had just fallen. My parents got me like a chip of it with a little bit of spray paint on a chip, piece of the Berlin Wall. You guys, I don't know. And I like had it, and I was really freaking excited about what was next. And like people were like starting cafes in Prague and then here was Havel, and Havel was going to help with this transition. And it looked like a solid communist or former one-time communist was really going to be able to like accommodate this thing so that this something that I thought would be a crisis was going to end in nuclear war, because that's what I thought it would end in, had ended in this, brought to this soft, velvety landing with this very personable, brilliant philosopher. And I sort of thought like briefly in this 90s way that we might have this wonderful soft landing for liberal humanism and liberal democracy. I mean, that's super corny, but that's my oh shit moment. And it was, right? Like that was such a beautiful time, and it's like so silly. It was like the son of this Greek Orthodox, it's a person that had worked for Clinton, who of course had been my hero, and then he was trying to understand what was going to happen to the Eastern Orthodox churches in the region, and I got to be present for it and carry pencils. And then there was this actress who was doting on.
You earlier said you carried pens.
Aha. True. I don't think, to be honest, I carried either. Both of those were proxies for water, which I basically was carrying, just anything he needed. But I guess the oh shit moment was when I was staring out the window at his wife, his blonde wife, and she was looking in to be sure he was smiling, just like many of our mothers might look to our fathers to be sure if they were smiling. And something about that exchange in the why am I forgetting the name of that kind of room? It's like a greenhouse, like a sunroom. It is a sunroom. Okay, so outside the sunroom, beautiful rolling lands. She keeps nervously looking in to be sure he's smiling for the cameras. That was just this like incredible moment of capitalism, liberal democracy, the end of communism, this old life, the old world, new world. Are we all going to make this thing work? So I would say that was the oh shit moment of like, I am at a nexus of history that I can never explain to the kids at home.
Oblio 23, you have a question.
Real easy question. Was this all conducted in English, or did you have a translator?
There was an interpreter present in the moment, and to be honest, because we're being honest, I can't remember the sequence of things. I mean, the interpreter was his, like the interpreter didn't travel with us, and he had kind of like a team of people around him, and one of them was that person. But there was an interpreter. Yeah, George didn't.
Time to vote.
Say anything and check. Yeah,
I think it's time to vote.
Right, Lisa.
All right.
He might have.
So here is, this is your right now. There is a Gavin Newsom sized vote for this being a lie by Virginia. 66.1% think this story is bullshit. Kate, what do you think?
I think it's bullshit.
Why do you think it's bullshit?
I just like there's like although I do appreciate some of the detail, like what she was wearing. I also kind of think that there are certain things that would probably have stood out. Like, I feel like you'd remember like a translator more distinctly in the room, in the conversation, and like not standing around awkwardly waiting for a translation or things like that. So yeah.
Scott?
I unfortunately, I feel so bad because I like you so much, Virginia, but I think it was a lie. And it pains me to say this. But I have to tell the truth, unlike you. The thing is that I feel like you had said, like you spent all this time researching and then you were like, oh no, I'm just going to go off. Like, why would you have to research the truth? And then you didn't want to look at Google because you didn't want to like be canned. But like, again, like if it's the truth, why would you worry about that? But more than anything, the fact that you like, of course, Václav Havel, I think is not tall, but the fact that you didn't know that immediately and that you then wanted to throw it back on me.
Question?
Yeah, I lied in my question.
Oh wow! You didn't even say 6 feet on Tinder, Virginia.
Like, right, 6 feet. I didn't say 6 feet. Tinder 6 feet.
Paula, what is your verdict? Whoops. Yeah.
I think she's lying. I think if you have an experience like that, or at least when I do, you really can't confine yourself to a sentence. Like there's so much you want to say because there's so much to it. And after years of reflection, you can like put the points together and it becomes this really nice narrative. So I would say bullshit.
All right, Daniel, what do you say?
I'm with the rest of the crew. I think it's a lie.
All right, I am going to take the contrary position here, and I want to explain why, because I seem to be gravely outnumbered. But so first of all, there is part of this story that I know to be true. That is, Virginia's account of Talk Magazine is correct, and I believe that she really did work there because her account of Tom Watson trying to persuade himself that they were doing high-minded stuff while in fact being infatuated with, you know, the celebs as they came, as Tina brought them in. That's definitely real. And so then the question becomes, would Tina have contracted George Stephanopoulos to go out and meet with and interview Václav Havel for a kind of vapid celebrity interview? And the answer is yes. That's exactly the kind of thing she would have done. And then the question becomes, would she have sent a young, eager editorial staffer on to wait hand and foot on George Stephanopoulos while he did so? And the answer to that is, yeah, that's totally plausible. And so I think the basic structure of the story is very plausible and has a lot of things right about it. Now, could this be because Virginia, in fact, worked at Talk Magazine and saw George Stephanopoulos sent out to do this, or somebody like him, and that this happened, or something like it happened, and she therefore is in a good position to construct the story? Yeah, but I'm actually going to go with this story is basically true.
I think that I just want to point out, for the record, Ben, that the last time you decided to vote on something based on your knowledge of an editorial process, it was Jonathan Rauch. And Jonathan Rauch completely screwed you, and that maybe Virginia is taking advantage of that exact same...
I just want to say the upside of being right when everybody else is on the other side of this issue is greater than the downside of being wrong. Virginia.
Ben, you're right. Telling the truth, every word.
Oh, really?
The only place you can find this online is in the Observer. Alexandra Wentworth wrote about... I gave Alexandra Wentworth, George Stephanopoulos' wife, a bad review of a show she did. And in response, in the days when there was a fray around stuff like this, she responded to my bad review by taking to the Observer and saying I'd had a crush on her husband, that we'd traveled to Prague once and I'd never gone out, and that's why I was mad. And
well, you left out that goss. Geez, well, I asked you about goss.
that happened after it, and you know, whatever. But I said I did clerical work for him. Does that count as going on a date? And she then publicly apologized for saying, I mean, there couldn't have been less between George and me, and I didn't anyway. But yes, all true. And the things I don't remember, I mean, is Havel especially short? I just remember him being not noticing how tall he was.
No, I just I just made something up, and I thought if you said, I think he's really maybe 6'1" or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I think he is short, but it was what was I going to say? That he actually has purple hair. I mean, it was like hard to come up with.
No.
You know, what's his blood type? I mean,
I hope that it wasn't like one of those like James Comey, Philip Roth things where they stand up and you're like, what the hell? So when you said 6'4", I was like, I think you're like misleading me, because there's no way I would have remembered if he was 6'4". Anyway, okay. That's that. How did I forget? I forget things. I just truly that's why I didn't look up anything in advance. I will trust my memory. The reason I don't tell the story is there's not really a great, there are not 3 acts to it. There's it's just name dropping, It doesn't have a really nice moment when a thing happened that was surprising. It's just 3 names. And the subtlety of his relationship with his wife is something that I could write about. I mean, I try to write about in a little perfect little gem of a short story for an Iowa Writers Workshop class. But otherwise, there's not a rollicking in lieu of fun tale about it. So I just thought I'd keep it short because it sounds so preposterous. and then let details come out in questions.
So
And
I
fooled you all.
I have a retrospective question about this.
Not all of you, but
So, you made a study today of past episodes of Where's the Lie by way of preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Who fooled you and who did you have totally pegged?
That's great. I honestly, I love Mike Godwin so much. But
Oh yeah,
that was a great
so
story.
good.
It's
That was
such a good
great.
story. But that was
Yeah.
where I got the idea that if the story is really long, it's confused. Like the burden on you might be less. I don't know. I sort of was like, yeah, maybe the story needs to be shorter because that's how it is on anyway. So that's where I got that idea. I was definitely, I just liked his story a lot.
They all involve a famous person. Like they all have involved a famous person. Like they're all about encounters with like a famous person as like a key point to them. I've been thinking about this a lot.
I was going to tell a story about a kind of like winter carnival.
It's
about the bunny ranch and like this famous madam.
I'd never heard of her.
And it was about like the editor of The Atlantic. I mean, not meeting them, but like, I don't know. Anyways, you're right. It wasn't as much about meeting someone famous.
I was going to tell about this druggy high school experience, and I like had tons of details, and like the sheriff came after me and stuff. Didn't have any famous people in it, except for a guy that later became a hedge funder whose name you wouldn't recognize, but that was like I had a huge crush on, and so I didn't go with that because it was a little too salacious, honestly. Like, and also there's this sort of quite humiliating with the sheriff thing. You guys are bringing the mood down.
Is it still too soon?
It's still too raw. I was 16, exactly.
Well, Virginia Heffernan, you're a great American for fooling everybody except me.
That was great.
Thank
that
you.
That was really fantastic. You really fooled me. I mean, really fooled me.
It's the perfect persuasiveness when you fool everybody except me. It's really the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Someday, by the way, I really would like to review how that 90s moment, for those of us who remember it, where it's just silly. And now it's like, is it just because we were young? Like, it's just ridiculous.
I think about that all the time. I don't know if you do too, Ben, but I do think about the insanity of the 90s when, like, we make fun of the end of history type of thing, but it did, in a way, kind of feel like the lion was lying down with the lamb, and it was all going to work. It really was going to finally work out. And
that Wordsworth line, bliss was it in that dawn to be alive and to be young was very heaven. Honestly, not kidding.
Nice.
It's French Revolution, another thing that didn't end as well as it started, but.
Right. I know.
Actually, it didn't start well either.
Good point.
Yeah, good point, Ben.
All right, we are going to leave it there. We will be back tomorrow. We have no idea who the guest is going to be, whether they will be telling the truth or lying.
Can I make a plug for my show?
Yeah.
It starts Thursday, and it is called This is Critical, and it's critical cultural criticism. And first episode is on trash talking and flopping, with a professional basketball player who really tells you how to trash talk and how to flop successfully. And I think it's going to be great. It's on Stitcher. It's called This is Critical, at This Critical Pod on Twitter.
Cool.
So exciting. And when you have to come back on the show to talk about it when there are a few episodes up.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, I definitely will. You guys are going to really love this show. Flop, by the way, Rob, like a soccer player, those operatic falls where people exaggerate their injuries. I think you're going to really like it.
Cool.
I learned how to do those falls.
You did?
Yeah. When you learn Aikido and certain martial arts, you learn how to do high falls.
Right. It's
Oh.
called ukemi.
Ukemi. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Very
Um,
cool.
yep. It's and you can make them look about as flamboyant and dramatic as you want.
Yeah.
I try to do that in my personal life.
Yeah.
Just get a lot of sympathy, desperate for attention and sympathy.
Yeah. I actually, I never mentioned this, but I have videotape of my brown belt test when I was 23 years old. Should I get it converted and show it?
I think you should.
Yes, obviously.
Okay.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh, totally.
Okay.
That'll be
You
22
forced me
hours
into it.
and 53 minutes. At 59 minutes from now, we'll see Scott's brown belt exam. And until then, Virginia,
We can't have fun anymore, but this is what we do in Lieu of fun.
yes. We'll see you tomorrow.
Better.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay.